I have in my hands the Donald Trump IQ test.
Oh, shit. It's going to be this video.
And I'm going to administer it to you.
Okay.
Right now.
President Trump spoke on Fox News last night, talking in greater detail than ever before about the cognitive test he says he passed with flying colors. But what's it really like to take the test? Who better to find out than a man who's the same age as Trump? Stephen Fabian tells us how he did.
The president can't seem to stop talking about that cognitive test he recently took.
It's actually not that easy, but for me it was easy.
He did it again last night on Fox News.
They say, that's amazing. How did you do that?
So this is the Montreal Cognitive Assessment Test, which is easily accessible on the internet.
If there is one thing Donald Trump has always been confident about, it's his intelligence. For decades, he's proudly proclaimed himself a very stable genius, a man with a legendary brain, a towering IQ, and the kind of raw mental horsepower he insists very few people can match. It's part of the persona he built. The billionaire dealmaker, the sharp negotiator, the Ivy League success story. But when the curtain is pulled back just a little, the truth turns out to be far stranger, more complicated, and a lot more human than the myth. Because behind every story about Trump's brilliance, there's always another story.
We can't sell beef. It's peanuts. And by the way, unbelievable people are coming. A lot of people that are illegal are great people. Just let's get it straight. They don't want to give it straight. Because the press are liars. They're terrible people. But here's an idea. So Mexico is sending lots of people. And by the way, they're coming from all over the world, including the Middle East. Why not? Come in. Come on in. We're stupid. We'll take care of you. We'll pay. You get sick, we'll take care of your hospitalization. What kind of a plan do you want?
A quieter one, whispered by the people who were actually there. And the moment you hear those whispers, the whole narrative begins to twist. It starts in the mid-1960s, long before Trump Tower, long before politics, long before the MAGA world formed around him like a force of gravity. Back then, Donald Trump was just a student at Fordham University, restless, ambitious, already convinced he was destined for something bigger. He wanted prestige, he wanted status, and above all, he wanted Wharton, the famous business school at the University of Pennsylvania, the one he would later describe as the hardest school to get into, the best school in the world. But the way Trump actually got in, that part of the story looks very different, because according to the man who interviewed him, Trump didn't get in through brilliance. He got in through connections. His name was James Nolan, Trump's actual admissions interviewer. A quiet, thoughtful man who spent decades in academia, Nolan was the kind of person who could spot a standout student within minutes.
Oh, Don, you're a little controversial. You're talking about illegal immigration. I said it's illegal.
That there are, for immigrants on the whole,
Come on, try getting it out. Try getting it out.
I'll get it out.
I mean, I don't know if you're going to put this on television, but you don't even know what you're talking about. Try getting it out. Go ahead. The premiums are going through the roof. The deductibles, frankly, you have to get hit with a Komatsu tractor in order to use them. They're so high.
In 1966, he got a call from an old friend, Fred Trump Jr., Donald's older brother. Fred asked Nolan for a favor. Could he meet with Donald and help him transfer into Wharton? Nolan agreed. He remembered none of Trump's big personality, none of the charisma, none of the extraordinary intelligence Trump would later claim he possessed. In Nolan's own words, "I was not struck by any sense that I'm sitting before a genius, certainly not a super genius. No genius, no super genius. Just a young man applying to a school that, in those days, wasn't even remotely as competitive as it became later. Today, Wharton accepts around 7% of applicants. Back then, it was above 40%. It was not very difficult," Nolan said calmly, brushing away one of Trump's favorite boasts like dust off a suit jacket.
We just spent $1 million building a soccer field. Okay? A soccer field for our prisoners that happen to be in Guantanamo. Okay? I don't like that. What do you need $1 million for? Level out the surface, let them play.
But Nolan's rating must have been decent enough because Trump was admitted. It wasn't a miracle. It wasn't a cosmic acknowledgement of his superior intellect. It wasn't even all that rare. It was simply a moderately qualified student getting accepted into a program that was nowhere near as exclusive as Trump makes it sound today. And that might have been the end of the story, if not for what came decades later. Because once Trump became president, the world's fascination with his intelligence went from a side curiosity to a political battleground. Supporters insisted he was brilliant. Critics insisted he was barely capable. Trump himself fueled the fire, tweeting repeatedly about his very high IQ, daring people to test him, challenging everyone from journalists to foreign leaders to compare brain power. Then, in the background, another rumor began spreading, a darker one. A claim that Trump's real IQ test score from his teenage years had finally resurfaced. A score so shockingly low that it allegedly exposed the truth that Donald Trump wasn't a genius at all, but something far closer to the opposite. The number making the rounds? 73, an IQ score so low it was considered borderline impaired. The rumor came with everything needed to feel believable. A name, a man claiming he found the document in his late father's belongings, photographs, even quotes. Social media ran with it. Memes exploded. Post after post painted Trump as a barely literate buffoon who somehow stumbled into power despite having the intelligence of a middle schooler. It was the kind of story the internet loves. Sharp, humiliating, and emotionally satisfying. There was only one problem. It wasn't true. When fact checkers traced the images in the viral newspaper article, none of them matched reality. One photo of the man who discovered the test turned out to be a random Adobe stock model. The father at the academy wasn't a school counselor at all. It was a principal in North Dakota. The supposed witness wasn't listed in yearbooks. The academy had no record. No former students remembered any IQ tests being administered at all. And above everything else, there is not, and never has been, any credible public record of Donald Trump's IQ. So if the IQ rumor was fake, why did it spread so easily? Because deep down, the Wharton myth had been circulating for so long that people were ready for the other shoe to drop. Trump built his image on exclusivity, the exclusive school, the exclusive clubs, the exclusive wealth. But the more people looked into his academic history, the more ordinary the story became. He wasn't a genius who bulldozed his way into Wharton through brilliance. He was a kid whose family made a phone call. He wasn't admitted in a moment of groundbreaking academic achievement. He got in during a year when nearly half of applicants were accepted, and he wasn't interviewed by a panel of impressed Ivy League scholars. He sat with one man who walked away thinking, well, he seems fine. That's what made the IQ rumor explode. It fit the emotional arc people wanted to believe. But the real truth, the part that's more revealing than any fake test score, is the quieter piece. Donald Trump crafted an identity around intelligence, not because he was unusually smart, but because he was unusually insecure. The Wharton story shows a young man who needed prestige to feel powerful. The IQ rumors show a public eager to question that prestige. Trump's own bragging about IQ, about genius, about being the smartest person in any room shows a man who knows that the image is half the battleground, because in politics, perception is everything, and Trump understands perception better than almost anyone alive. That's why he hides his grades, why he threatens lawsuits over transcripts, why he inflates the difficulty of his school, why he calls himself a genius before anyone else gets the chance to question it. The more you peel back the layers, the more the story stops being about test scores and starts being about identity, the kind of identity a person constructs when the truth feels too fragile. Trump wasn't stupid, but he wasn't exceptional either. He was a perfectly average student with an extraordinary drive to be seen as more. And in a strange way, that ambition, not intelligence, is what carried him the farthest. So no, Trump didn't score a 73 on an IQ test. No, he isn't secretly hiding a devastating number that would shatter his public image. And no, Wharton didn't admit him because he dazzled anyone with brilliance. The truth is simpler, less dramatic, but also far more revealing. Donald Trump's greatest talent has never been his intelligence. It's been his ability to sell intelligence, to turn confidence into currency, to turn pedigree into power, to turn a fairly average academic background into a myth of extraordinary genius. And whether you admire him, despise him, or fall somewhere in between, you can't deny that the myth worked, because for millions of people, even today, it still does.